Purely because the emphasis was so much on the brain and why we do what we do. And what is the end result of what we do? Why it's important for me to know how the brain works? Because, as I said earlier, if you know how your brain works, you can work your brain. If there's a belief, of course, behind it, and there's deliberate action, and you can apply those, then you become unstoppable.
If we know that we can be embarrassed and our face turns red or anxiety, we know that and we know these emotions, what are the rest of the emotions doing? Like abandonment or rejection or hurt or anger. We as a culture have a tendency to just bury all of those emotions and bury it all, and then wonder why we have a health issue pop up.
And in that whole system, because of how complex it is, it was important to have a computer that could take input, process it, understand the significance of it, and then decide and determine and carry out actions in response to the input. That's very, very complex. So the more complicated it gets, and the further along we went, the more important it was to have an absolutely superb computer. And that computer is the human brain.
Yeah, that's all. People, the terminology, the vocabulary, the language people use is their perceived perception of life, and perception is everything that determines our direction of life, how we perceive things, and that's how we create our own limitations unconsciously. 90% of the time they live unconsciously because it's all programs. Your brain can't handle all the information, 100,000 experiences, 70,000 thoughts, so it just can't manage all those. So now it goes into the subconscious mind, and now we live unconsciously. And my question always to people is, how much of your life do you live through awareness, through actual consciousness? Because you live your life on automatic pilot. So how much do you change and how much do you evolve, really?
And we get exposed to the information that will trigger the talent within us. If you take Beethoven, or if you take Picasso, or if you take all these big icons that we're aware of that have the artistic talent or the mathematic talent, or Einstein, well, how did they get triggered to explore and explode that talent within them that it's been centuries, and we still talk about them and study them and use them as examples?
Really what I want to focus on, because we can all overcome physical tolls, it's the mental aspect that comes with that. There is a mental drain that comes with chronic pain. So after all these deployments, at about 10 or 11 year point in my career, I started to feel something was not quite right. I started to get the migraine headaches. First kind of road rage. And then the memory loss started to kick in, where I'd walk by you in the hallway, I'd go get something to eat, I'd see you in the hallway coming back, and you would be a friend of mine, and I wouldn't remember your name.
And so a big part of, I think, what we're doing is we're innovating around these new types of brain imaging, and we're trying to reframe the discussion away from mental health and mental illness and move into this different discussion about brain health and brain function. It's a subtle difference, but I think one that's important.